And welcome to this regular meeting of the Northside Board of Trustees. Before calling this meeting to order, the board would like to take just a moment to briefly review some of the rules for conducting our meeting. It's important to note that on March 16th, 2020, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request by the Attorney General to temporarily suspend a number of open meeting laws to the extent necessary to allow for telephonic or video conference meetings in response to the coronavirus. I'll now ask Mrs. McGee to call the roll of trustees. Ms. McGee.
Dr. Harrell.
Present.
Ms. Freeman.
Present.
Mr. Medina.
Present.
Mr. Lopez.
Present.
Ms. Chumley.
Present.
Mr. Blunt.
Present.
And Ms. Reed.
Present.
Yay, and we all are present in person. Yay. In accordance with those suspended rules mentioned above, we certify the following. Notice of this meeting has been posted online for at least 72 hours. We do have a quorum in attendance through in-person. We are meeting in part by use of a software application which allows communication among trustees. As we would with any in-person meeting, members of the public who have followed the instructions on the meeting notice for registering to speak during the public comment portion or to address a specific agenda item will be limited to no more than 3 minutes to speak. All other meeting procedures will adhere to board-adopted procedures to the extent practical. An audio recording of this meeting is being made and will be available to the public at a later date. We apologize in advance for any unforeseeable difficulties and ask for your patience as we navigate these conditions. The order of business for this meeting is set out in the agenda. One item that you may notice on the agenda is the consent agenda. This item includes items that are considered routine and/or are of a recurring nature. All the items listed under the consent agenda will be acted upon in one motion. The meeting will then be officially called to order. Please stand and bow your heads as Trustee Lopez leads us in the invocation and pledges of allegiance.
Almighty and merciful God, we ask your guidance and blessings upon this board, students, parents, patrons, teachers, and administrators, as we are assembled here this evening in the common pursuit of this great nation's wealth, our children. Amen.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. All right, we were going to begin with the superintendent's report. Dr. Woods.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Harrell. Members, trustees, a few things to report to you tonight. I want to start with legislative update. Naomi Miller spent the day in Austin today. House Pub Ed did meet and take up several bills, so she was there to render our support for a couple and our opposition to several, as you might expect. There is a strong rumor late today. However, let me caveat with this. This is not the first time we've had a strong rumor, but there is a strong rumor today that there will be an announcement about federal funds tomorrow. So we're hopeful that not only will that rumor be true and that we'll have an announcement, but that announcement will be positive for schools in the state. So we are hopeful that that is the case. As the members of the board know, we have moved many of our events to hybrid events, away from completely virtual and to hybrid. And that takes a fair amount of logistics work. And I want to recognize the communications group and the Northside media team for all it takes to pull that off, both an in-person in part and a virtual option for our events. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of logistical effort, and I wanted to recognize those folks. it has been really nice in the last month or so to see several events that have involved our kids in person. And none of the was any better than the HEB Texas Loves Teachers event. We were selected to kick off that campaign by HEB. In lieu of their annual teacher awards program, they decided to do a statewide tour, and we were thrilled to be the first stop on that tour, and it was an absolutely heartwarming, outstanding event. I want to thank, again, our communications group, our fine arts folks, and of course HEB for that. In the last month or so, I've been able to see kids compete in robotics. We've had the Jones and the Zachary Magnet Middle School induction ceremonies, the Passmore 50th anniversary, and of course the return, the first time since 2018, Mr. Blunt, of solar cars. After being rained out twice in 2019 and then having it be a victim of the pandemic in 2020, it was really nice to see our kids back out on the track racing their solar cars. And to say there was a lot of enthusiasm is a big understatement. So thanks to Mr. Blunt, of course, and to our science folks, our C&I science folks, for putting that on. It was really, really nice to see. Tonight we bring to the board the look at the 21-22 instructional models. We've had this conversation in committee several times. There has been literally thousands of hours of input into the presentation you'll see tonight. All of this is obviously pending what decisions the legislature finally makes on that topic, but we feel like we've got a good plan, a strong plan, and if we had to pivot some around whatever the legislature decides, we feel like we can do that. We bring it to the board in April because we feel like it's time to start communicating with our families very soon so that they can then make choices for the 21-22 school year. I want to wrap up by saying that this Thursday, the 29th, we'll have a celebration of the, I don't know if I should call it retirement, Mrs. Reed, celebration of service. How about that? Celebration of 31 years of service for Mrs. Reed. And I won't get into my comments on that till Thursday, but we're having the event as a hybrid. It will be at Clark High School, and I think all of our in-person slots are full, but we would encourage anybody to watch the event at nisd.net/live. Many of us will have an opportunity to honor Mrs. Reed and her 31 years of service to the children of Northside School District. So,
Thank you. Did y'all see it that night? Can they see it later?
yes, ma'am. The live stream is, once it's up there, it's available anytime after that. Yes. And Dr. Harrell, that concludes Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, Dr. Woods. I'm going to go ahead and let Mr. Blunt go first because he has kind of a special report.
Well, thank you. One quick announcement. Y'all been hearing us talk about this for a while, but our book now is in hard copy. This is actually our first announcement with it. So this is our public education in San Antonio area from our Board of Trustees in the San Antonio area. So we'll be marketing that more and talking about that a little bit more. But if it's okay, I wanted to, and I appreciate it, I wanted to yield my time. We have a couple of special guests with us. They are leaders not only of their districts, in the case of Gary Emmon with Church Civil Universal City, and we also have Sylvester for Southwest ISD, but they've also been leaders of our Bexar County School Board Coalition. They've also been leaders of the Texas Association of School Boards, so they represent the best of the best. And I know they want to do a special thank you, so I'm going to yield my time to them.
Good evening, Board President, Superintendent, friends on the board, which is all of you. And it kind of gives way. The reason I'm speaking first, by the way, Gary was nice enough to let me know why I'm speaking first, because I'm older. Okay. So I said, thank you, Gary. But we're here to say not goodbye, but thank you, Katie Reed. I first met Katie Reed, back in 2003. By the way, I am Sylvester Vasquez Jr., currently board president, Southwest ISD, past president of TASB, and one of the co-founders of the Bear County Coalition. And that's where our travels began at TASB. In fact, I was watching her get her laptop right now, which reminded me of a story. She chose me to mentor when I first got on the TASB board. And I said, thank you, Katie. You know, we used to, back then, we could sit next to each other, right? We sat next to each other. We both had just gotten our laptops for the first time. In fact, it might have been the first year TASB went to laptops, board book. And I said, thank you, probably said Mrs. Reed. And she probably told me to call her Katie. You know, and I said, thank you for, you know, choosing to mentor me. She says, well, I'm choosing you because you look like you know what you're doing with that laptop, and I need help with mine. So we started our travels with laptops at TASB. Then again, in, I believe it was 2007, we became founding members of the board coalition. But it's been great travels. You know, Gary probably get mad at me for mentioning this because he probably wanted to say it, but, you know, we're the three past TASB presidents of the San Antonio area, Katie Reed, Gary, and myself. So we have something in common other than just Bear County. Katie has always given of herself in a way that sometimes school board members don't, and that's quietly, you know, common sensely, you know, caringly, lovingly. Katie, I want to say thank you. I don't want to say goodbye because I hope we'll be friends for a long time, continued. Northside has been blessed. The county of Bear has been blessed to have you, Katie Reed. We won't be there on Thursday, so we wanted to be here today and just say thank you. And thank you for allowing us to give you that hug before the meeting started. And take that picture, which, by the way, we'll send to you since it's on my phone. Thank you so much, Katie. Gary.
Let me just mention one thing also. Sylvester is now following me on the ACOG board as the representative for ACOG, which is a 13-county regional area. So hopefully you will make them to understand how important school districts are. So thank you.
Good evening, trustees, Superintendent Woods. I believe Sylvester mentioned that he met Ms. Reed in 2001, 2003.
Yeah.
I met her back in, I guess I call it 1985 BSB, which would have been, stands for a before school board service. It was that long ago. I was, been looking at my gray hair in the video here. It looks kind of strange, quite honestly. But I had dark hair back then. I was a senior in high school. And who would have ever thought, I guess we're talking 36 years later, I'd be here to say thanks for service on the school board. I mean, I don't think either one of us would have ever thought that. And I think I was hanging out at her house in 1990 in the spring when she decided to run for school board. And I know that was quite a long time ago. And Sylvester mentioned both of us were TASB presidents. And I think you guys all know Ms. Reed's service to not only this district, but just as important, if not more important, the service to the state. You know, I think probably served on the TASB board for 12, 13 years or so, which is quite a long time. And you think about all the hours that you devote here at the local level, then you add that on top of that, and going all over the state and going all over the country, advocating for public education for children, for teachers, for staff members, for countless thousands of kids all across the state and all across this country. And I know Sylvester and I, you know, we kind of grew up underneath Miss Reed. I call her Miss Reed because when I met her, she was Miss Reed, and she's still Miss Reed to me. But, you know, when we both got on the TASB board, I know we all looked up to her. And I think if I recall correctly, when I decided to run for school board back in 2000, I think she was one of the first phone calls I made just to sit down with her, and she talked to me about school board service. And at that point, she'd already been on the board for about a decade. So she was already very well experienced. And I know we've been family friends for years, and like Sylvester said, I'm sure we'll stay in touch after that. And so I appreciate you guys letting us be here tonight. I know Thursday nights was booked up, and unfortunately we couldn't be at that, but I'm glad we had an opportunity to stop by tonight and say congratulations, good luck, and thanks for your 31 years of service.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much, and thank you for your service as well. Appreciate it. All right. Other board, Bobby, were you concluding? All right.
Anything else? Thank you.
I know, that was really nice. Thank you. Any other board member reports? I'm looking. Ms. Reed, and then Mr. Medina?
Just a couple of things that I wanted the board to know about. Number one, I hope you have all seen the story that was published in the Lone Star, Texas Lone Star, which is the publication for school board members, about Miley.
Yep.
Miley is a service dog that we have, and the person who does most of the writing for the Lone Star had some surgery or was ill and couldn't do a lot of things at that point, and they asked for people to submit stories. And I think we may be the only one that got one printed, and it was written by Monica. So I think Monica deserves a big hand of applause.
Woo.
One of the other things that I've been involved with the last week and a half for sure is the search for the new dean at the College of Education at UTSA. I think both Brian and Carol were asked to serve on that committee too, but were not able to. And I was glad to be a part of that. We interviewed 4 people. The decision has not been made yet, but it was an interesting process. And I'm eager to see how they come to the recommendation at the end. So one of the candidates, they had 4 finalists. One of the candidates actually started talking, and he is a native of San Antonio, and he went to Passmore, and he went to Jones, and he graduated from John Jay. So I thought that was quite unique. It will be, there's some good candidates there, and we'll see who comes forth. And went by Colonies North today because I understand that their choir or their group is singing, and I just want to say thank you. But I liked what they've done so far as the security lobby, because they were one of the ones that had a real problem trying to figure out how to make it work. So that's about all I have. I'm looking forward to Thursday night, but not looking forward to be not a part of this board yet. So I'll still be around for a couple more meetings.
Of course you would. And you know, what's interesting about how you started sharing, you said Miley is a dog that we have. If you know Katie, you know she meant we as in Northside.
Right.
If you didn't know Katie, you'd think she was talking about a family pet. But because we always means Northside, I think that's an indication of how much you are a part of the Northside family. So,
Thank you.
and that won't go away. Mr. Medina?
Thank you. It's going to be real short, just real quick. Again, today was last day of early voting. Just kind of public announcement again, election is this Saturday, May 1st. So make sure everyone gets out there and takes care of their civic responsibility. As well, this month has been really busy with campus celebrations, and it's been difficult, and it's been a blessing where the virtual celebrations have been accessible not only, but for those family members that are extended, for grandparents and faraway uncles or people that have family that are in other places. And so it's been a really delight to see our students and staff members set up those 50th year anniversaries and selections for magnet campuses and so forth. And so I wanted to thank all those staff members, administrators, and most importantly, those individuals that keep our schools running as normal as possible, our custodians and our bus drivers, getting out there on those roads and making sure our kids are arriving to school on time and safely. And I'll save majority, lastly, NEF is putting on a family-safe evenings for, I think it's for movie nights that are going on at SeaWorld. It's tied in conjunction with the Northside Education Foundation, beginning the month of May, and I just wanted to make sure everyone's invited to definitely come out there and have some family-safe fun and watch a few movies in the evening. It's like a drive-in, so I was born going to the drive-in, so I enjoyed it, and I know my sons do too, so just want to make sure that there's an invitation for everyone to join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Medina. Ms. Freeman?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Harrell. You know, Katie, you'll always be part of this board in our hearts, just so you know that, and you'll always forever be part of the Northside family. So, and I won't go any further than that with our salute to you. We will celebrate your leadership on Thursday night. Just some announcements for the board. Advocacy Institute registration opens in June. Or, I'm sorry, the Advocacy Institute is in June, June 8th through the 10th. It will be held virtually. And I guess, Gerald, you still are our primary in that because you've received the scholarship, or, right, from TASB. So you will be able to, and anybody else that wants to participate can. You just need to talk with Linda McGee. And to that point, Linda McGee also needs to know whether you have a desire to participate SLI in person. And there is a deadline for that, and it's coming up soon. And there will be a lottery for school districts to participate in person. So please let Ms. McGee know whether you are interested or not. And then just as a congratulations, you all know Viola Garcia. She's a trustee in Aldine, past president of TASB, and has just recently began her service as the NISBA president. So we all congratulate Viola and representing Texas at that particular level. Yeah. And that's all, Dr. Harrell.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. Mr. Lopez, and then Ms. Chumley.
Yeah, I just wanted to say quick congratulations to the Taft High School's theater department. They went all the way, they're going to state, so I will be joining them this weekend in Waxahachie, seeing her. So just so that you guys know, and it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be really tough for them. So I think for all of the competing theater departments, so that'll be good. And I'd like to wish them good luck, and that Northside is behind them 100%. So thank you.
We need to break lots of legs, right? Yes. Okay. Ms. Chumley?
I just had a couple of things. I have to take this off, guys. I have to breathe. So first off, I want to thank Bobby for everything you have done on solar cars, because I wasn't able to make it. I was actually in the other promised land at a spring game, which I will have to tell you, it's exciting to be around a bunch of Aggies again. I'll have to tell you, as Dr. Woods shakes his head. But Bobby, I heard wonderful things about it, and I just want to thank you for being the driving force behind that for so many years and getting kids outside in the sunshine again. I have really enjoyed Twitter recently because I'm seeing all of these kids' performances, and so I want to do a big shout out to Saul Ross's Mariachi, because they've been going to a bunch of different schools and different events, and if y'all haven't heard them, you really need to take the time to go by and hear them. They are wonderful. They could compete with our high school level mariachis. That young man who is their director just does an outstanding job. But it is exciting to have kids back again. And I think you see an enthusiasm with our teachers to have their kids back. And I love hearing teachers say, my kids, my kids. You know, it's just really neat to hear that again. And then just a shout out to O'Connor FFA. They had 8 of their teams, their spring teams, make state. So they will be going to state and participating over the next couple of weeks. Yeah, so that's exciting. Katie, I want you to please know, always, 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 that you are welcome to everything. I know Linda already has your name on the list for any events that this district has. You are an integral part of it, always will be. Please know that you are always welcome to anything that you want to come to. And I really think that as we move forward with talking about our bond, that we have an excellent person that could serve as a tri-chair right now. So
She's there.
anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley. All right, that's everybody. I did want to thank HEB for, and I want to make sure I got it right because it was so wonderfully put, Texas Loves Teachers Tour, that staff came out to help pass out bags. Karen, Gerald, Katie, thank you for coming out. We had a blast. There were teachers with tears, teachers who waited an hour to get these bags, but more, I think they waited just to connect, say hi, to wave at Brian. There was a life-size cutout of Brian in somebody's convertible. There was just so much fun. And so everyone should, I think this is your bag, Karen, but there's some wonderful goodies in it. So shout out to HEB for the Texas Loves Teachers Tour. And it went for the full amount of time. It was, and still some cars came, so it was great. Just echo what Brian said, the Jones 50th anniversary couldn't have been better. It was, Katie, wasn't that just wonderful? The kids, we're getting back. Solar cars, Bobby, the only thing Dr. Woods left off was that it was cold. It was cold. It was cold. And windy. But I had this one, I was a greeter, so I was greeting, and then they had to scan their health thing, right, to make sure they were okay to come in. But this dad and mom were coming in, they go, didn't sleep last night. And I said, I bet he was excited. He goes, no, we didn't sleep last night. We were excited. So there was just like, it was like half the amount, right, of normal, but it felt like a full stadium. It just was so full of fun. Be Well, Stay Well was a huge success. Over 300, we'll hear about that later on tonight, right? Or maybe it was just at academics. Yeah. Almost 350? 360 participated in incredible, everything from volunteerism to financial support, to breathing, to exercising, eating right, gardening. It was wonderful. I just say up the ante and do it every other month. We're going to need a lot of Be Well, Stay Well. The Northside Partner and Employee Gratitude Award ceremony was really neat. If you haven't seen the streaming video on that, it is posted. Several of our people that we know and love, our departments in Northside, got awards. Their speeches were great. Our partners are just tremendous, and how far-reaching their influences on kids, and it just was wonderful. Brian got a special award, which everyone just thought was terrific, but it just so you know, it came from the trustees too. It was part of our gratitude to Dr. Woods. And then just a reminder that I always call it the prize patrol, but the NEF grant patrol needs volunteers still for Friday. And then I believe next week sometime, Cassandra sent out an email. So if you end up having time this Friday or next week, prize patrol is also probably one of my favorite things to do. So anyway, with that, we are now moving on to recognitions. We have CPS Energy is here with a special presentation. Dr. Woods.
I think Mr. San Miguel is going to kick that off for us.
San Miguel.
Thank you, Dr. Harrell. Let me make some introductions. I know Jacob Villarreal, who oversees the energy department for Northside, is online somewhere. And Mr. Mike Franco who's here to my right, is the Energy Management Coordinator for the Energy Department, and plays a very important role in saving energy every single day for Northside. That includes at least one aspect of it, just to kind of give you the magnitude is, we have hundreds of events that happen in Northside for a multitude of great reasons. And so Mike and his staff have to turn the system on, turn it off, make sure it turns off at the right point, so we don't have an overage of energy throughout the entire district. That's just one aspect of the operation of the Energy Department. This evening, Northside will be presented a big check by CPS Energy for our efforts in energy management and for the district's participation in their demand response program. Demand response program is a voluntary program that not only helps the San Antonio electrical grid, but also helps ERCOT grid, which powers the state of Texas. Northside ISD has participated in this program for many years and has curtailed energy on a routine basis. Last year, during the pandemic, it was unsure how we would be able to conserve energy since most of our campuses were already in the occupied mode. We were still able to curtail energy to the average of 991 kilowatts, resulting in a check for almost $70,000. In addition to demand response program, CPS Energy also has one of the most lucrative energy rebate programs in the state. Last year, we took advantage and received nearly $7,000 on just 2 projects. And this year, we look to receive much more as we finish our 20 energy efficient projects throughout the district. Tonight, we have Ms. Kara Hill, Director of Key Accounts from CPS Energy, is here to present the big check to Northside as a result of the district's participation in the demand response and the energy efficient programs that we currently have as a partnership through CPS. So I may introduce to you Ms. Kara Hill, who is going to say a couple of words, and then we can take a picture with the big check.
Well, thank you, Mr. San Miguel, and good evening, trustees and Superintendent Woods. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. As Mr. San Miguel mentioned, Northside's participation in our demand response program is really a win-win for our entire community. Your participation helps all of our communities save during the summer peak season, save on those energy bills. It also helps us manage our peak season during that period of time in terms of what power plants need to be running. But best of all, we get to put some money back in your pocket. So just want to share our appreciation for Northside's longtime partnership with us in this program, and look forward to another great season just around the corner. So with that, I have this for you all, and appreciate being here.
Thank you.
Let's all go take a picture.
Thank you very much. One thing I forgot to mention real quick, you have a book, Take Time for You. This was the keynote speaker from Be Well, Stay Well, Tina Bugren. Just incredible book, incredible keynote speaker as well. So you can find YouTube videos, and she's a real bucket filler. All right, we will move to citizens. Yes, sir, Mr. Lopez.
Can I just make a comment real quick about the CPS Energy before we
Please.
go further? Yeah, Leroy, I want to thank you so much for working on that program and doing that. I think anytime we can demonstrate to the public and to the taxpayers that we're doing what we can to conserve energy and save them money, it's a good thing. And so thank you so much for believing in that program. I appreciate it. And for the department that's doing that and managing that, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. We have no reports. We do not have any citizens to be heard at this time, so we will move to consent agenda. First, with approval of the minutes from March 23rd and April 13th. And any discussion on any of the items under consent agenda? Any questions?
Dr. Harrell?
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to ask the trustees there was lots of discussion in building committee in relation to the interior graphics and the library graphics. Interior graphics at Strauss, the library graphics at Passmore. And Jerry's not here, but Strauss really looks wonderful. And just I think, Leroy, we have the graphics here. If everybody will just make sure and take a look at it. Really, really have done a nice job. And I'm trying to think, I've gone completely blank, Leroy, on who the architect is at Passmore. LPA. The young woman, took our recommendations and talked about it and just came up with a really cute idea. And one of the things they're talking about is an area that's an activity board, where there's a section, there's the graphics, and then there's a section where they're talking about having an activity board like with Legos or other sensory type activities. And it's really neat. And I thought this would be a good place to start with that. And that might be something that we want to see expanded into our other libraries. So I think it's a great opportunity that's coming. And then the other, and Leroy, I apologize if you sent it out in the Friday letter because I haven't looked at all the Friday letter yet, but there's going to be some information coming out about a change in the Taft brick color, that red color, and so we actually have the samples here. So I just wanted to make sure that all of the trustees were able to see that, just trying to make sure that we all kind of stay on the same page as to what our schools are doing on the design side. That was it. Thanks, Carol.
Thanks, and we certainly can do that when we go back for executive session, so good. We'll take a little tour. Thanks. All right, any other discussion? Do I have a motion before the floor? Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Medina, there's a second. Let's just not do roll call vote, since we're all here in person. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it, and we have now passed in person the consent agenda in a whole year. That's great, yay. Woo.
About time.
Yes, now we will move on to curriculum and instruction, proposed instructional models. Dr. Jordan.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Harrell, Dr. Woods, Board of Trustees. Tonight, we'll present to you some information, much of which you have seen and you've been shaping for us since January. We've had the opportunity each month to bring some chunks to you to get your feedback and direction. And so this will be an overview of the particular pieces that Dr. Woods was referencing in his comments that we're hoping to share with the community beginning this week. So our current model, before we talk about our proposed model, has several elements. One element is right now, students and families have a choice. They can choose in person or they can choose the virtual learning model, despite any indication of readiness, despite their success in either model. are frankly their preparation to be successful in the virtual environment. Our teachers, as you very well know, are currently teaching both in-person students and virtual students simultaneously. And we've talked quite a bit with our teachers, have gotten some really helpful feedback. And I don't think it'll be a surprise to anyone. That type of teaching situation is untenable for the long term. I do want to mention, we have seen phenomenal examples of teachers balancing both of these methods. But to do that continually long-term can certainly cut into quality. And then the final piece, or elements of our current models, is we've seen lack of engagement increase in the virtual environment as the year has proceeded. And we believe that the fact that there's less structure in the virtual environment, less quality control in the virtual environment, that those are contributing factors to the lack of engagement. So we also, if you recall, began bringing you student data, their performance data after the first quarter. We brought it back to you after the second quarter, the first semester, and we saw definite trends. The student learning data shows that within the current instructional models that I just described, that students in the virtual learning environment underperform students in the in-person learning environment. Certainly there are exceptions where some students are thriving in the virtual environment, but by and large, the data across all student groups indicates that students in the current virtual environment perform less well. So that has led us to the proposal that we're bringing forward to you today. We've had the opportunity, again, to have principals, community members, parents through NEIC, teachers, really help us create what we're calling Northside Reunited. It is our belief, based on the data, that the vast majority of students need to be in-person learners, that is the best environment for them to thrive. Yes, we will always have a virtual learning option, but we are asking for families and students to come back to school, to be in the classroom, be in the science labs, be in the band hall, et cetera. So the process that we went through to design this proposal, even just starting from the bottom, first time we brought kind of a draft to you guys was in January. And then each successive month, we brought together teachers, we brought together principals, we had input from members in our Northside Education Improvement Council to help design these pieces, bring back to you for your great help in us shaping the proposal. So just as a point of clarification, in the proposed models for next year, we will still have an in-person learning environment and we will have a virtual learning environment. So if you take a look kind of at what the proposal for both of those models share, both of those models will implement best practices of quality instruction. In both of those models, teachers will collaborate in the professional learning community process. They will communicate and engage with families, differentiate for all of our learners' needs. So certainly that is the expectation, whether it's the virtual environment or the in-person environment. But there are some definite differences. In the in-person environment, students will not be on Zoom day in, day out. Teachers will not be teaching from behind a desktop or a laptop. Students will be moving about the room. They will be rearranged and rearranging themselves in a variety of learning groups. They will use tech tools. They absolutely will use technology, but it's the ones that are best suited for the in-person environment. Students will have high-touch manipulatives that we know is definitely best practice. We use the term teaching on your feet. meaning teachers will be moving about the room to interact with students. The virtual environment will use Zoom, or if there happens to be another delivery mechanism. In the virtual environment, students will continue to use tech tools, but they will be the digitized tech tools that are meant for that type of delivery system. Whereas in person, you think of teaching on your feet. This is teaching through streaming. So it's the act of delivery of instruction in that method. Students will use manipulatives in this model, but they will be digital manipulatives that are designed for that environment. So in the virtual, we will have some classes and courses that have students from multiple campuses, perhaps. We won't know until we know our numbers, whereas the in-person are typically students from the same campus. So what will the virtual daily schedule look like? So for elementary, the virtual schedule will follow the same schedule as the elementary that the student attends. So the student will start the school day in the virtual environment and will end the school day in the virtual environment at the exact same time as the in-person learners do. The virtual environment will start the day at elementary with their morning meetings. I know we've talked about this some in academics. This has been a phenomenal way. It's probably the thing we've gotten the most positive feedback from parents, even students who after lunch they disappear, or after the first little break they disappear. Unfortunately, that happens. They don't miss the morning meetings where they come together as a team, as a family, so to speak. There will also be the closing circle of how we end the day. The virtual environment will follow the instructional requirements, same instructional ones for in-person. There'll be dedicated time for enrichment and intervention like we do in person. Attendance will be taken. Students must have their camera on, and the camera has to be facing the student's face. Can't be facing the ceiling, the wall, something else. There will be engagement check-ins anytime there's a shift to other content area. And also teachers will meet in their professional learning communities to design learning and provide feedback for students. In the secondary schedule, the students in the virtual environment, they will start and end the day at the same time. So if a student is a middle school virtual student, that student will start the day and end the day just like at the same time all of our middle schools do. Same for high school. We're using the term satellite course for high school. So if you had a Japanese course and you only had 6 students or 5 students who wanted to join that virtually at a campus, we would then certainly want other students from other campuses virtually to join in, and we call that a satellite course. For secondary, attendance will be taken every period, and again, the camera must be on. The student must be visible on the screen during class. And just as with elementary and just as with in-person, teachers will meet on a regular basis in their professional learning community. So we had a really good conversation. I think this was in our March academics meetings, and y'all really pushed our thinking because one of the big decision points is, so what is offered in the virtual environment? What's offered in terms of extracurricular? What's offered in terms of co-curricular? What's offered in terms of clubs? What's offered in terms of programs of study? What's offered in terms of programs? So there were 2 criteria that the team designed, and we applied these criteria uniformly to all of those pieces that I just described. So the first is for a course, a program of study to be offered virtually. The Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills must be able to be 100% mastered virtually. So we are required to teach all of the essential knowledge and skills. We are required to give a testament, you approve that as a board, that all of our instructional resources are 100% aligned to the essential knowledge and skills. Therefore, this delivery system has to be able to provide the potential for mastery of all of the standards and skills. The second criteria is that for the program to be offered virtually, it cannot require that students have to come up physically during the school day in order to participate. So that student is fully in the virtual environment or they're fully in the in-person environment. So when we apply these two criteria, these are the pieces that come out. So if you take a look across the top row, these are all the offerings that meet the criteria. So you see offerings in GT and advanced academics, fine arts, physical ed, world languages, CTE. Below are the courses or the programs that do not meet these criteria. That either, and sometimes both, they don't meet either. Either the text cannot be mastered 100% virtually, or for a student to participate, the student would need to be physically present sometime during the day. So a couple highlights I would like to point out on this list. You'll see in GT and advanced academics, there are many opportunities in the virtual environment for advanced placement, for on-ramps, for dual credit. All of gifted and talented certainly can be provided virtually. In the fine arts, you see areas in art in particular, art history, art appreciation. Those texts can be mastered virtually. The performance type offerings, many have a class period during the day where students must participate in order to perform. It requires students to interact physically in order to meet the essential knowledge and skills. In physical education, again, a whole host of offerings are available. Participation in athletics is not. And again, as Dr. Woods says often, and we keep reminding, the legislature may come back and say, we have to do X when we plan to do Y, and we're ready to pivot. But applying those two criteria, participation in athletics is not amenable for virtual learning. If you'll notice in world languages, quite a few are offered virtually. But if you'll note French, German, Latin, Spanish, you won't see the last course, the fourth course. And that is because those fourth courses, the student is completely speaking in that language. They're interacting with other students. They're using that language outside of the classroom within the school building. And the nature of those essential knowledge and skills require that they be in person with their classmates and at the school. Under CTE, as you know, CTE there are programs of study. There's a whole host of them. State gives all districts a list. These are the possible programs of study. Then underneath each program are multiple courses. We don't offer every single program of study that's on the list. Really, frankly, I don't know any district who does. So the way to interpret this column is those are the programs of study listed. So one of the programs of study is business, finance, and marketing. So there are certain courses in business, finance, and marketing that can be offered virtually because they meet those two criteria. There are other courses that perhaps do not. So when it says select courses in those particular programs, that's what that refers to. Looking below, those that you see listed, Alamo Academies, off-campus dual credit, architecture, construction, manufacturing, those are programs of study where the entire program of study, all the courses within that program of study do not meet the criteria. And it could be an issue of equipment that students need to use. It could be an issue of some sort of programming, some sort of collaboration expectation that students must do with others. So in addition to the programs of study, we looked very carefully at programs. So you can imagine, and you know, I love Dr. Woods' comment that thousands of hours. It really might have been that many hours of people who do this every day from the campus and also our experts in the district really dug deeply in special education and in bilingual ESL. So what is important to know about special education, what will be offered virtually? That will be a decision based on the decision of the ARD committee. So two things. First of all, the requirements in special ed will be whatever we have as requirements in general ed. So we won't discount a course because it's for a special ed student. We won't add a course. So it will align with general ed. And the key piece there is our students receiving special education services have an individualized educational plan that is a collaborative creation with their ARD committee, and their parent is a part of that. And so the ARD committee will determine, can the student's IEP be met in the virtual environment? And if the answer is yes, then that student may participate in it virtually. So that's a little bit of a different process, or maybe a sister process. Now, bilingual ESL, the recommendation is that we do not offer any bilingual ESL programs in the virtual environment, and here is why. Remember the two criteria. The first is, can students master the text 100% virtually? Well, the answer is yes. In these bilingual programs, they actually can. They can master the text. But what they can't master is they can't master the ELPS, which is English Language Proficiency Standards. And the English Language Proficiency Standards are a requirement. They are a companion to the essential knowledge and skills. And just as they sound, English Language Proficiency Standards, it is based on communication, interaction, conversational language that you are immersed in within a school environment, not only that classroom, but other places with your peers to learn the language. So we mentioned before that just like this year, we have in-person and virtual. Next year, we're gonna have in-person and virtual, but we're putting much more structure on really both environments to increase quality and increase success for students. And so one of the ways that's happening is there will not be a choice for every family and student to decide if they want in-person or if they want virtual, which is what we're doing now. For students to be able to select the virtual environment, they will need to be eligible for that selection. And the main criteria for selection is, does the student have demonstrated success in the virtual environment? And we define demonstrated success by looking at 3 areas. Looking at their academic success, and we know that's communicated with a grade, a number grade. That's communicated with, did they not have to do any remediation? Basically, did they get it the first time? Or maybe they did remediation within the class, but not the formal credit retrieval or credit protection. Are they promoted? Do they meet the standards to matriculate to the next grade level without formal intervention? The second is acceptable attendance. There is the 90% rule, where students must be in attendance 90% of the time. There is that caveat where a campus committee can make an exception to that on an individual basis, which happens. And then the third piece is the student behavior. The student cannot have any acceptable use policy violations in order to be eligible. Once we know and apply these criteria, what will come out is a list of students who meet these criteria and a list of students who do not meet these criteria. At that point, we then will be able to communicate with families. Those families who are eligible will be receiving some more information so they can make an informed choice. And then they will make a choice as to, even though I'm eligible, I choose in person or I choose virtual. At that time, when we have that number, that is when we can begin selecting teachers. So the number of teachers per section, per course, per grade level, per program is going to be dependent upon the number of students who select the virtual environment. And so teachers selected to teach in the virtual model, they must meet the qualifications of our virtual teacher job description. So we at Northside, as all districts should, we have a really good job description for a classroom teacher. So what we did is we started from that job description, and then we created the virtual job description. So everything that we want for an in-person teacher, all of those qualities and that knowledge, you want really in every teacher. So the virtual job description only talks about the technological expectations and the instructional expectations using technology that are frankly different than an in-person teacher will be implementing day to day. When we know our numbers and we know our sections and we're able to see what choices of courses for students, we will then post positions individually at individual campuses. We may need to post some that are clustered. If we know where there's going to be a virtual teacher that will have a grade level that will span multiple campuses, we would post most likely in that cluster. And then if needed, we could post a district posting. We'll begin with posting internally with our own staff, certainly first. In order to ensure our virtual teachers, are prepared, we're certainly looking for a skill set from the outset, that they're coming with a skill set and an interest. And then we are designing a virtual professional learning academy that is going to provide them the tools and the PD that they need in order to do some of these items and that slide's not there. I think that was the last one I added. So some of the pieces on the virtual job description, really the expectation is that the virtual teacher can design and implement instruction in a way that utilizes technology to differentiate, to personalize learning for students. In addition, the virtual teacher is going to need to know some hardware pieces. Can the teacher troubleshoot for himself? Can the teacher help students troubleshoot, help parents troubleshoot in order to keep things running smoothly? So in terms of our next steps, we are here with you tonight, and beginning later this week, there will be communication sent to the community. Last week, the concept of Northside Reunited and really kind of a 20,000-foot overview was intentionally provided to internal staff. So they hear some of those pieces first, and many helped or have been knee-deep in this proposal. And then beginning next week and the subsequent week, there will be further district communication that's going to be outlining the specifics of the models, that will be outlining what parents, how they go on and make the choice. We're right now looking at the week of May 10th, Monday, May 10th, to be when we open the system, where parents then physically can go in and make the selection. From that point then, the marble starts rolling down the hill to start finalizing students and courses, so then we can determine teachers. So at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions, if there are any.
Are there any questions for the board? This does go before us for approval. Mr. Lopez?
Thank you, Dr. Harrell. Janice, I did have one question on page 9 on your presentation. When you were talking about the virtual offerings and then what is not offered in the virtual, we talked about under athletics, that was something that was not included in that. And I think when you said other curricular activities, would spirit fall under that as well, like cheerleading, pep squad, and things like that? Does that fall under athletics? I'm not sure. Does it? Okay, just wanted to make sure. So there's a complete understanding that they have to be at the campus participating to be in, whether it's like, and the only reason why I say that is because, you know, those spirit organizations, they usually follow a criteria of say, hey, freshman year, you want to get into spirit or band, you have to participate in pep squad, right? And you have to prove yourself, not really prove yourself, but you're involved in the organization, and it leads you up into the more rigorous teams like a dance team and cheerleading. I think those are great. I like that. And I think in order to be in athletics, you know, you want to be around, you want to see your teammates on campus and that camaraderie. So it's not to say that we couldn't do that virtually as well through other means, like a chess club or something like that, to create some kind of a form of extracurricular activities, something like that, like, you know, anyways. But I think that's important. The next question. No, I don't have anything else. That's it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Chumley?
Guys, I apologize, I was not able to make academics, so I've got several questions, and I will make them as quickly as possible. First, I'm just going to make a public message. If it was up to me, I would have every student in person. That's it. Turn off the virtual and move forward. But in saying that, I want to thank you, Janice, and everyone who has worked on this, and Dr. Woods, because I think if there was a program that tries to find common sense, common ground, and really looks to what is best for our students, I think that you have done an amazing job in finding that. And so I want to thank you, because I certainly want to support this. So thank you. I think y'all have done just a great job. And I was a little fearful of some of it, but I'm extremely pleased, and just really cannot thank you enough for all of the hard work that has gone into this. And I know that there's been a lot of really hard decisions to have to be made with this as well. And so I appreciate it, because I really, in what I'm seeing in this, I hear that kids first was what's the focus of all of this, is what was going to be best for our kids, not what was the most popular decision possibly or recommendation, but truly looking at, from a social, emotional, and academic standpoint, what was best for our kids. So I wanted to start with that. So what I wanted to ask is there a minimum number of students to make a virtual class? So if we have, let's say, and I know that you said that we were going to possibly have clusters, but let's say we have an elementary school that has only 2 third graders that want to do virtual. Then is there a minimum? Is there a point where we say we don't have enough to make a virtual class, and that it's not going to be offered?
There is the possibility of a minimum in a very rarely offered course. So if you had a course offered at only one school, so probably not elementary, right? We're talking high school, and that course had only 3 or 4 students signed up for it, it probably would not be offered. In the example you give, however, that those 2 third graders would be paired with 18 or 20 other third graders from another campus or perhaps multiple other campuses in order to make one cohesive virtual class.
Okay, all right, because that's what, thank you. So teachers, so one of the comments that I've been hearing from teachers is what has been a struggle is that teachers have said that they will start with their kids starting on the cameras, so they have to open up the cameras, but by the end of the class or the end of the day, they go in to say goodbye to everybody, turn off the cameras, and there's all these cameras, or there's all these, they're not, you can't see them, but there's all these spots still open because the kids actually aren't there. And so they're not there to sign off because they haven't been there, and the teacher's feeling is that they haven't been there for quite a while. So I'm asking, so it's stating at the beginning of the class, they have to be there, they have to turn their camera on. Why can't we have it as a requirement that if a teacher thinks she's lost somebody, that she has the authority to mandate, they've got to show their picture. They've got to get on camera for that moment. I know there's lots of questions in relation to making them stay on camera in their households the whole time. There's some privacy issues and other issues that we have addressed over this past year. But I would really like the virtual teachers to be able to have the authority to say, John, I need to see your face. I haven't heard from you, I've called on you a couple of times, I need to see your face. Because Brian, teachers are saying that they are asking that now, and kids are not responding.
That will be a requirement, and if that requirement is not fulfilled, that child will be told to come back to the building.
Right.
Okay, so they will have the authority, because some teachers, I think, have felt that, I know some students have felt like just as soon as they open in the morning, then they don't have to come back on, even if the teacher asks them to get back online. So I would really make sure that we make that very clear to students and to teachers, that teachers have that authority to ask students to open up their camera for a minute to make sure they're still there.
Just like they would in an in-person setting. Yep.
Okay, that's going to be great. I think that will really help with some of the morale issue from some of our teachers. Will we be pulling in-person students to fill a virtual class? So those high school classes that may not have enough numbers, we're not going to pull students that are in person to make a virtual class.
That's correct. We will not.
All right. If you could give me an example, Dr. Jordan, one thing I'm not understanding is you could give me an example of when it will be appropriate to have less than 90% attendance?
There's
You
a
said
whole
that
host of things.
The committee?
Yes, so
could-
if you had a student, so there are 3 criteria. One is the academic criteria, the other is a behavioral criteria. So if you have a student who has more, that they're not meeting the 90% requirement, yet they're making straight A's, they have no discipline issues, in working with the counselor is aware of the students had a health issue, there's been a family issue. Sometimes they're just extenuating circumstances that if that is kind of the one thing where the student's out of whack, And if there's a history with a student, if that student, you know, has been in the same school for 3 years, they're going to know the family, they're going to know the kid. And if this is kind of an aberration, that the student is admitted every year, but for some reason this year, that's when the committee kind of comes together and they look at all the particular pieces surrounding it. Is this kind of a one-off situation that is not a pattern for this student? Or if there was this external situation that was impacting the student right now, is there a way to move the student along despite that?
Okay, how does that impact, though? Because virtual students still have to meet the same criteria as in-person students of seat time, or
Sure.
minutes, and
Right.
so how does that work?
So the statute, this is actually in statute, this is in law. So what the statute says is that a child has to have 90% attendance in order to earn credit in a course. But each campus is required to have a committee that looks at extenuating circumstances. So if a child has an acute illness that recurs over the year, and the campus knows about that, they're likely going to make an exception in that case for that child. If the child, especially an elementary age child, lost a parent and missed several days of school due to that, they're going to make an exception to that case. So the campus is looking at extenuating circumstances, and they have been doing this pre-COVID. This isn't a
Right.
COVID-related issue. This has always existed in the way we handle attendance and award credit.
So this isn't on a long-term basis, it would be more on, you know, it's not like chronic absenteeism, it would be more of an acute situation in a child's life. Or it could be the chronic piece, because they may just,
Right. I mean, we've had
Have-
children who, you know, who suffer from cancer, where it's a, you know, and the campus knows it's a year-over-year thing, and we're going to do everything we can to help the child.
well, and we've got the 504 protections on that, don't we,
Sure.
Brian?
Sure, but this would apply for a child who didn't have
Who
504.
didn't have that.
Right.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. So I know that you were talking about that it'll be coming for the teachers to be, you know, to apply for and then be evaluated on this. And I know one thing that we have talked about over the whole year has been that one thing COVID has shown us is that there's some teachers that are stronger than others in a virtual environment and an in-person. And I applaud those that are strong in a virtual environment. In fact, I applaud all of our teachers that have done this throughout this whole year, because I don't like Zoom meetings, much less thinking I could ever teach in a virtual environment like that. So one thing that we had asked about, Brian, was that one of the responsibilities of our administrative staff on our schools was to be evaluating teachers' performance as virtual teachers. And so do you feel that we have enough data on our campuses where we will be able to evaluate if they have been successful? And then I guess, too, that we'll use if their students have been successful. However, to me, that's a little bit harder, because there's so many other factors that are influencing the success of kids in the virtual program, and it may not be on the side, it may not be that it's due to the teacher not being able to teach proficiently in a virtual environment. So I just want to make sure that we're fair on that, and do you feel that we have enough data on each campus to say that?
Yes. By the time we make these selections, we'll have almost a year and a half worth of data. And so, yeah, there will be ample data. No, that will not be a problem.
Okay, because I know, too, that the district has worked hard to be able to provide training for teachers who wanted to get better throughout this year and a half. And I think that we probably had some that have taken advantage of that, and we see that improvement. Okay. Will families be able to move back and forth, or is the decision final for the school year?
I strongly suspect that will be an area where we will have deep state guidance. And so we purposely did not insert that in the presentation, because I think we will be told how that will go. We will push and have pushed, both legislatively and regulatory wise, for the longest possible way to say to a family, We're asking for a commitment. We're going to expect you to stay to the commitment. But again, I suspect that won't be completely up to us.
Okay. And then just a couple more, guys. I'm almost done. Will the virtual student be part of a school with their counselor, their principal? And on the high school level, I think that we've pretty much addressed, athletics, cheer, band, choir, those things that pull kids up to into the school. But on an elementary level, if they are a virtual student, will they be able then to participate in school events? So, shoebox parades, those types of events. Does the virtual student, particularly if they are a virtual student in a cluster, do they belong to a school, and are they allowed to then come to the school to participate in those types of elementary activities that we all, have seen and are dear to us?
And Melissa, Ms. Chumley, I was just going to add, like, Girls on the Run, too, like after-school learning tree. I'm just going to attach my question onto yours.
Sure.
Can they come for any learning tree activities or school-sponsored ones that are after-school?
The answer is
Engineering,
yes.
Kids engineering, I'm trying to think,
As long
robotics.
as it's not during the school day.
Right.
So if it's before school, after school. Now, one of the things we talked about before school, if the student's going to come before school, it's a virtual student, that's fine, but that student then has to get back home, logged on, because that student has to be there to start school when elementary school starts.
Yeah,
So if they're
the
coming
goal
to
is,
breakfast and then.
the goal is to keep kids connected to their campus, to answer the first question, to be a part of that campus. And we don't see ourselves excluding kids from every possible activity, but to Janice's point, during the instructional day, that child's receiving virtual instruction, right? So we can't be just hanging around the school.
Yeah.
You're at home with your teacher receiving instruction. But we do see the after-school bike rodeo, even student council, something that happens outside of the school day. We still want those kids to have some social connection. We still want those kids to be connected to the school. And so we see that that's a possibility.
You could also, I could see where some of the events that we have during the school day, virtual teachers could do with their students too.
Of course, yeah,
Within that.
sure.
Okay. And I'm sure that there will be questions that come up on that, but we're going to try to make some guidelines that are pretty consistent through grade levels, I would assume. Is that what Brian, I wouldn't want one school to have completely different set of rules for their virtual students versus another. I think that's where I think we really need to have continuity among the schools on what is allowed and what isn't allowed.
Yeah, I agree. And we've still got some things to hammer out. That's a little bit further down the detail tree than we've got, but agree that does need to be consistent school to school, to the degree the same programs are offered school to school.
Right, and then I just want to verify, cosmetology falls within the CTE, that will be only in person, is that correct?
Definitely,
Right?
definitely.
Okay. And then just to clarify one thing on Gerald's comment. So in cheer, you do have specific roles. So I have to be I wasn't ever in cheer, but I think my understanding is I have to be in pep squad as a freshman, and then I can try out for cheerleader or dance team as a sophomore, but I can't do that if I haven't done that year of pep squad. So I start out as a student virtual the first year. Now I come into school I'm coming in person as a sophomore. Do I have that requirement then that I still have to meet what that first year requirement was? Or now can I avoid having to do that by coming in as the second year as in person, and now I can try out for cheerleader or
No.
dance team?
If if the answer was during that freshman year, there was no kind of spirit activity, then no, you'd be expected to start as a ninth grader would. If there was some kind of outside activity that could be verified, we've made those exceptions in the past. But general answer to your question is no.
Okay, all right. That's probably something that we need to make sure is communicated to families as well of students, particularly freshmen, that may want to participate in some of those extracurriculars that will have a prerequisite for advancement within the different roles. And that was it. Again, thank you very much.
Welcome, thank you, team.
Appreciate it.
And thank you, Ms. Chumley. I do think that we so appreciate the comment about social, emotional, and mental health and trying to keep kids who are in the virtual environment part of the community too and connected. And so the discussions at both academics have been around that and what that could look like as far as the type of teachers that's chosen for virtual too and the activities they do. And so we're excited about that as well. Ms. Reed.
Yeah, I had just one question. One of the slides there was talking about the day, timeline of a day. I thought our elementary school day started at 8 o'clock, not 9 o'clock.
Did it say 9 o'clock?
Yes.
I've already closed my presentation.
It's
That
actually.
That's the
must-
time
that
we do
must be
the
a typo.
attendance.
Oh,
They
that's when
actually
they
do
the
start earlier,
attendance.
but that's the
Okay,
time they
but
do the
the
attendance.
Students should have been
Oh,
there.
9
yeah.
a.m., yeah, is attendance, but the start time.
Yeah, the
at
day
time.
starts at elementary at 7:45.
So, okay, not even 8 o'clock yet.
Yeah.
Very early in the
Question.
morning. So if they didn't get online right away, but they're there at 9 o'clock, then they're counted as being there?
Yes.
Which was the case pre-COVID.
Okay.
But they could still do breakfast with grandpa, right? And then go over, whatever
Okay.
that, the breakfast events that sometimes elementaries do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Janice, I had a couple. I know you were sharing the criteria, and it's very clear, and there's really, I have no questions around that. I'm just considering students who want to, like a family of 5, right? 5 kids that want to be in a virtual environment, but they do have issues with bandwidth. I mean, it's not a criteria, is it going to be a criteria on their part that they have to have a certain amount of internet support in order to do virtual, or is that onus on us? Because it's very much a reality.
No, we can support that, especially given the relatively small number that we think will both qualify and choose this option. We can certainly support that. That's not a concern.
Yeah, that happened, I mean, and you know that. I mean, it takes up more bandwidth to have you live and in person than just your name. And so, okay. The other question is, I know it said STEM could be done virtually, but I thought there were some STEM courses that there's specialized equipment that is used. And so there's a plethora of courses. I'm just wondering, are some more suited for virtual, and those are the ones that go there, but yet there are some that have to be done in person, kind of like,
Yeah, we probably need to change that. STEM is too broad a term. Certainly there are STEM courses that are not at all appropriate for virtual. I'm thinking anatomy and physiology, right? That needs to be in person. There's so much lab work.
Yep.
So that, we probably need to change that to
Yeah, because.
a traditional math course is appropriate for virtual, right? That can be done virtually.
right?
In the science area, in some of the engineering spaces, very, very difficult. And we would not do those courses virtually.
Yeah, and that gets into all the computer science,
Right.
cybersecurity, a whole host of these that would not lend themselves.
Okay, thanks. Looking around, any other questions? All right, so that does go before the board for approval. Is there a motion before the board? All right, Ms. Reed has moved for approval. Is there a second? Mr. Medina, second it. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
And the models have been approved. Thank you, Dr. Jordan.
Thank
very
you.
much. All right, next we have, let me get back to. Sorry, trying to get out. Here we go. All right, we are now on item 11, Facilities and Operations, Master Plan and Schematic Design, Mary Hall Elementary School. Mr. San Miguel.
Thank you. Tonight, we have a couple items for the board to consider and hopefully approve, and that would be the master plan for Mary Hall Elementary School.
The Mary Hall is.
And then subsequent to that would be the actual schematic design for the library at Mary Hall as well. The master plan was done in an effort to logically plan our facilities over time. And as a result of that, given the fact that the 2018 bond program had the upgrade of the existing library, or a library at Mary Hall, you will see also some recommendations and some suggestions from the architect on the upgrades to the library at Mary Hall. So with us is, there you are, Jesse Garza, our architect.
Wait, Carol, before Jesse starts, I just wanted to share with the board, so this has come to building committee several times, and in the bond was the promise about the library. And what was anticipated in the bond for the library doesn't make sense with what the master plan is. And so we want to make sure that the whole board saw what we were doing in relation to the master plan, and then that would put in context then the question of what we do to the library. And so I just thought it was important that we all kind of have that background piece. And so I appreciate Jesse coming to do this. Leroy, appreciate you putting it before us.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley. Dr. Woods, trustees, administration, thanks for the opportunity to present this project to you guys tonight. Next slide. So I'll try to move through this quickly for brevity, but if you have any questions, please stop me and I'll be more than happy to answer those. So we had 6 main components for objectives that we were targeting as we developed the master plan. The first was to implement long-term planning associated with bonds, current and future, develop a logical planning mechanism to allow us to achieve current standards in the master plan, address some current challenges that we had on the campus that are stated there, comply with projected enrollment projections, and then also we have a campus that's going to stay operational, so you want to minimize impact. And incorporate the use of the most recent investment that's been made at that campus, which is Building J back in 2006 or so. Next slide, please. For reference, this is an aerial with the assignments for the particular areas of interest is the library we'll be talking about in this area for schematic design. And then this is Remuda with the bus loop, and then the main entrance is off of West Edge. Next slide. Again, for reference, some quick images. The one on the left is the current library. The image here, this is administration just to the right of the library, and then that's the bus loop that we saw on the site plan. Next slide. Just to give a perspective on the campus and the reason for the master plan and the development, as you can see, the school is almost 60 years old already, so it's been around a while, and a lot of the buildings are in need of development for current standards and also some replacements due to life cost analysis that's been done on those buildings. The site is about a little less than 10 acres, which is a little smaller than most campuses, New York campuses we have for elementaries. Next slide. So we've got 2 phases with subphases that we're going to look at really quickly. The first phase would require the central plant that's located here, would be located to this upper side along a new service drive. And then secondly, we would demolish Building E, which is a classroom building for about 8 classrooms, to allow us to construct a new classroom building, keeping the larger one in place for most of the duration of that particular phase. Next slide. This is the second-story building here with the second up above, and that would take place over that building E location, which then at the completion of this phase, we would relocate the kids from the building D, which is about 18 classrooms, into this location there. Next slide. And that's a 3D image of what that would look like. Everything in gray would remain as existing. Everything in blue would be a new building under this particular master plan and phase. Next slide. Secondly, we would come in here, and as this building's demolished to move the kids, as mentioned, we would demolish the gymnasium building, construct the cafeteria and the gymnasium, a new gymnasium, and then that would be tied into the central plant that's part of the first phase. So that would complete that particular part, which would facilitate those functions at that point. Next slide. So at this completion of Phase E, we're recommending this would be considered as a single project in the future when we get to that point in future bonds. Next slide. The second part of it, second phase, after that initial one, is we come in there and we demolish the cafeteria building, which is Building C, and they would occupy the new cafeteria. That would allow us to construct the remaining part of the classroom building, both first and second floor, and an administration component. Keeping in mind the admin and library would stay functional at this point. Next slide. Then we would demolish a part of Building B, construct the library, and then the library would be functional while the new one is being constructed, and admin would stay in place. Next slide. And then we get to our last phase. Now we have a complete school with compliance with the new standards and master plan, which then would allow us to demolish the remaining library and admin and the supporting classrooms so that we could complete the site work, next slide, on the subsequent phase here. So this would be the absolute last phase, and then you would have the main entrance drop-off drive, a new identity of the building, and so forth. And next slide. So that would be in its complete form with all buildings gone. And one more slide, please. And that's the close-up of the schematic plan for the proposed plan. So what this entails, next slide, is a building that would look like that in its future scenario with the new parking, et cetera. And then that's the building J that I mentioned we built back in 2006. Next slide. So right now what we're looking at is, for logistical purposes, this would be phase 1A through E would be the first phase in the appropriate bond for that. And then the remainders, these don't have to be built all at one time. They could be broken up, but ideally economy of scale would be a good point to take advantage of if you can at the time to build that. And so that's the total cost in today's dollars for that particular master plan we presented today. Are there any questions regarding the master plan? Okay, I'll move on to schematic design. Next slide. For reference again, the library existing is located in that area. So this particular schematic design, it looks to upgrade and renovate that existing space in its current location. Next slide. So option A, we're looking at two options today. Option A essentially is renovating the existing library, which will require new finishes, including carpet, VCT, wall paint, ceiling tiles, some new lighting, some technology upgrades, audio visuals, projectors, projection screens, and then a new furniture for the library that is not in this contract, but will be provided under this scope. The plan, we're not remodeling any of the exterior walls or the interior. Actually, it's all within finishes within the interior. Next slide. And that would give you a rendering perspective of potentially what that looked like with new ceiling, new lighting, circulation desk here, new carpet, tiles, finishes, library furniture that is in accordance with what you've seen lately on the library furniture initiatives. We would have an AV spot here, and then these windows along the perimeter are existing. Next slide. Option B includes a lot of the same elements as A, with the exception that the desk would be more mobile in accordance with what we're currently doing on new libraries. The library feature in this particular scheme is incorporated into the ceiling with some options to look at possibly something that would be down on the floor at a future date. This space is a very limited space in terms of height, so we're looking at articulating that ceiling feature to give us a little bit more height, which would then give us an opportunity to provide some decorative lighting, suspended fixtures to give us that additional height. We would look at some additional ductwork, some electrical upgrades in there, and then some exterior wall repairs that are needed as well for controlling humidity. Next slide. Same floor plan as we looked before. The only difference is that circulation desk is much smaller and we pick up an additional seating area. Everything else remains relatively the same. Next slide. And this is a perspective on potentially what that would look like. So this area here is what we're calling our ceiling feature. That is where we can raise it from the current height of about 9 feet, and we raise that a couple of feet, so the structure is enclosed within these waves. Now, thematically, we're showing an aquatic theme here, but that's just a placeholder. It could be anything that comes out of the development with the school administration and facilities to accommodate the proper theme. We do have the new furniture as well, and we'll be studying possibly a flooring element that would tie into this to the theme that's eventually selected here.
Jesse,
Yes, ma'am.
before you move on that, so can you go back to the other picture? Yeah. So one thing that when we were looking at other elementary schools, that I kept looking at this, trying to figure out what was different. And what it is that you're keeping the computers at those desks, whereas now in the new, the new feature is the computers are going against a wall. And so is that something, Leroy, that we can look at? So you actually do
Yes.
you actually do change that footprint a little bit to make it more in line with what the new libraries are looking like?
Yes. So what we're looking at right now, as I think we mentioned in a previous meeting, is that once we confirm the actual number of stacks, we do know that there's going to be a stack reduction. Then we have the ability to look at what walls we can place those computers on.
Okay, so that is the plan, because I really wouldn't want us to
Yes.
do this and leave those old-fashioned computer desks
No, no.
in there.
Yeah.
Ms. Chumley, we used to build them on site, but now it's furniture that we can just put against the wall. We'll put the infrastructure for it around the perimeter, and we'll get with Lisa Kuka. She'll let us know how many stacks, and then we'll find a spot for it. That is, something that we can put into the plan. So that would be a slight change to this, but that's our standard.
But that is the plan, though.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so approving this doesn't tie us into that. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry, thank you.
No problem. And then lastly, on the cost aspect of it, we have the option A, which is pretty much the finishes without that articulated ceiling, which is at $479. I can't see that far, but and some change, and then $866 for option B. The budget at the time that this was a bond project that was funded is 2.5. And there are two other components that are being contemplated right now that are also in need on the campus, is the central plant replacement of boilers and some controls and pumps. That is about $360,000 there. And then there's also a air handler replacement for the library, including the dehumidifier unit, which is an additional $200. So collectively, if we were to take option B and the other two infrastructure elements, we would still be within the budget.
Leroy, question on, so we're adding in the boiler pumps And then in the phase one is the relocation of the central plant. Would we just move those new, I mean, it's not like if, once we did that, that we would have to replace those again. We would just move that equipment
Yeah.
to that new site, right?
The boiler replacement is something that we could probably pick up and move, and then the pumps will go with it and just reinstall it to wherever it needs to go in the future.
Okay,
So it's salvageable.
okay.
Leroy, on that one, to piggyback off of that one, how old is that unit?
The boiler is
Yeah.
almost original.
So
So
wouldn't
it's
it
got
make sense
40
for us
years.
to,
I think it's got 30 or 40 years. And that's why we put it in the bond, because it's getting.
Okay,
ready
yeah,
to
okay,
get
good.
the life cycle.
Okay, good.
That's why the newer boilers are more mobile than they are the older ones.
Right.
You've seen a boiler that looks like a big tank.
Right.
Well, they're more electronic and things of that nature that will allow us to be able to move them
Good.
a lot easier.
good. On the last page where we have the option A and option B, the air handler and the dehumidifier, where is that located? That, you said that was in the library, or where was it?
They're on the roof of the library,
Okay.
and they serve the library.
Okay, so specifically the library, yeah.
Mr. Lopez, what we did there is we added that to the scope.
Right.
Because if we're gonna keep that library for the next 8 to 10 years, that air handler is not gonna last us that long.
Yeah.
So we might as well go ahead and replace that piece of equipment now.
Yeah.
Because if we follow the master plan, the earliest that we could get there would be maybe 8, possibly 10 years. And that's if collectively
Yeah.
is decided to do it over a 2-bond period.
Yeah.
So remember that, the next one would be 22, 4 years out would be, 6. And by the time we get to it, it would be beyond that point.
Well, no, I really like that, and Jesse, I mean, great job, Leroy, on this, and Jesse, great job on your design and this, and presenting this as well. One of the things that I specifically like is that, this campus never really had a front facade, even though Remuda, that side on Remuda Street should have been, but it seemed like everybody always connected or always went through the West Edge Drive. So I think what Mary Hall, I mean, this is a great design. I like that you're really identifying the entryway. I really do like the bus route coming in on the side. Now, where the bus lane is, that's where the houses are, right? The property, the houses?
The proposed bus lane?
Yeah, the proposed bus
Actually,
lane?
there's a 65-foot drainage channel.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of space between that bus drive.
Oh, okay, yeah, good. So it's not as close, but yeah.
Correct.
Okay, good. Well, Jesse, great job on this. I like the master plan and excited to see this, and I'm sure the community will be excited about it as well. So, Leroy, thank you so much for that as well, and I appreciate.
So, Mr. Lopez and board members, we are recommending B, because we know it's got to be there for quite a while. So we're suggesting that you consider option B. And then, as soon as you approve that tonight, you'll get to work so we can get it done quickly.
I'll pick up Bill Miller's on that.
And then, Brian, if you could address, so we were talking about that first option, and I want to thank Jesse and Leroy as well, because I wasn't really sold on this at first. And so they came back a couple of times to building committee with other ideas. And so I really appreciate that they took a really hard look at it and made sure that there wasn't any way that we could do that first phase with the library of what we had originally thought. And so I really appreciate you guys putting your eyes on it so many times. And Brian, that you have come back with good suggestions in relation to what we can do to still honor our commitment to Mary Hull and that community in relation to what we had said we'd do in the bond. But one thing that we were talking about that I thought was really important was we were talking about, so if the first phase is in the next bond and we could fast track it so that it could start, even with that, we're still 8 to 10 years out before we would be at the phase where we would be demolishing the library. So I just thought that was important to be able to see that even fast tracking that first phase one bond is not going to be able to get that whole school completely renovated. So that new library will be there for, at least almost 2 cycles of community kids going through that school. So I just wanted.
Yeah, that's right, and that's the reason why we're so strongly recommending option B. We think the bigger project is important here because it does honor the commitment we made in 2018, and because it will be on the ground 8 or 10 years before any additional work would happen there.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
No, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Okay, Ms. Reed is presenting a motion to approve option B. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Lopez, second. We'll take an nope, we will vote.
Ms. Harrell,
Yes.
there are 2 items on the agenda, the master plan and then the schematic design, just for clarification.
Okay, so I'm looking at the verbiage. It didn't quite say that. So approval of the master plan and schematic design needs 2 votes?
It doesn't. It
No,
could be
it could be
2
one.
motions or it could be 1.
Okay.
I mean, that's up to
But
Mrs. Reed.
still,
She made the
can
motion.
it include option B
B.
as part of that? Okay, so Ms. Reed, do you want to just rephrase that, please?
I would move approval of the master plan for Mary Hall and schematic design as presented.
And option,
Well,
including option B. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Lopez. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it. And option B, approval of the master plan and schematic design, option B for Mary Hall, has been approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, there are no items for business and finance. Human resources, 2021-22 campus-based growth and improvement units. Patty Hill, welcome.
Yes. Good evening, Dr. Harrell, Dr. Woods, and members of the board. Tonight, I come to you to request your approval for the additional campus-based units or the staff members needed for next school year. These units will support the opening of 2 new schools. Tomlinson and Strauss are going to need some teachers, some administrators, a counselor, a librarian, a nurse, plus clerical, auxiliary, and other campus support staff members. These units will also support the expansion of our elementary STEM lab program, expansion of our pre-K program, and other district initiatives. These units are derived from the request in the growth and improvement packages and the estimates from our resource planning office. In total, we are requesting 102.82 new units. Detailed information is included in your agenda item, and there's a spreadsheet attachment with that. Your approval for these units now allows our campus principals and your HR staff to get a jump on our competitors to hire the best of the best. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Patty, these are all the people that we need for those 2 new schools?
2 new schools plus the expansion of the elementary STEM lab
But
program.
it doesn't seem to me like that's enough teachers.
Well, remember that they'll receive teachers that are coming from other schools that we're
Okay.
going to transfer over there as we downsize some of the other schools. So there will be some others.
I'm going to say it didn't seem like enough.
Mr. Lopez?
If nobody else has any other questions, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the 2021-22 campus-based growth improvement units.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lopez. Is there a second?
Second? But
Ms. Chumley, seconded.
I do have one question, though,
Sure.
Carol. So Patty, in the past, we've looked at allocations in relation to some of our schools, particularly like our Title I high schools, where we have allocated additional staffing for different roles and different needs. Are we still doing that? Are we still looking in relation to that? And if so, that's incorporated in these numbers as well?
It is, although we still do have our staffing meetings with the high schools and the middle schools, and our principals present to us, and if they have any special needs, It goes through administration, and we may possibly add.
Okay, and then there's one position, so, and I'm not sure if I'm going to give you the right title for it, but at some of our Title I elementary schools, and I know the position because the woman is phenomenal at Saul Ross, that Irene that does the
Community liaisons?
community liaison, community involvement, and I know that we had one at Esparza, and are those, do we still have those positions at our Title I schools?
We do.
Okay, and is that a request from the principal? Because I know some principals can opt to not have that position and use title funds for something else. I just think that position's really important, and so I just wanted to make sure that is still part of the discussion, and we still look at and value that type of position.
That is a position that a principal can choose to fund through campus allocated title funds, and many do.
Okay, all right. And so if they don't do that, then we're having that discussion with them as to what other position would be, those title funds would be used on.
Yes.
On that. Okay, I just want to make sure that we're still having that discussion.
And they've been needed more than ever these days,
They really have, Patty.
for sure.
So, okay, thank you.
Any more questions? All right, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor of approving the 21-22 campus-based growth and improvement units, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the ayes have it, and the units have been approved.
Thank you
Ms.
so much.
Thank you, Patty.
Get to work.
I'm very excited about your new secondary HR person, but I'm kind of sad about it too, Patty.
I know. She's already doing great. She's great.
That's good.
And Miss B is too, at elementary.
Good.
All right, we are now going to item 16, superintendent, and there's a few items under there. Dr. Woods.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Harrell, I think every other month, we've brought to the board a review of COVID expenditures and potential, or I guess actual reimbursements, although most of the reimbursements are still potential. On slide 1, you see an ongoing, since the beginning of the pandemic response in March of 2020, an ongoing list of costs that are actually out the door. So these items have been received, they've been paid for, and that totals that $18 million. What you can see is that the largest item continues to be technology costs. You see, to your earlier question, Dr. Harrell, the student MiFi internet services, that's an ongoing cost for obvious reasons. And then PPE, big cost there. And then the technology on this line represents student technology for the most part. So you can see 18 million has been spent in COVID response in those various categories.
Brian,
Any questions on that?
Are we still doing the employee childcare?
No, that was one time for the first,
For
2
the
weeks
first
of the
few
school
months,
year.
Yeah.
Right, only the ones with the little asterisk by them are ongoing
Okay, I'm
costs.
sorry, I didn't, because I thought that we had, that kind of had naturally phased out.
Oh, yeah, long ago.
A long time ago. Okay.
On slide 2, you see outstanding purchase orders. So these are items that that we've got orders in but have not yet received, and so the dollars haven't left the district yet. That's the difference in slide 1 and slide 2. The bulk of this cost, as you see, is technology. Most of this is teacher Chromebooks. And we had to cancel an order with a company that couldn't deliver and place a new order with a company that could. And so that's why those dollars haven't left the district yet. At the bottom of this slide, all we're doing is adding up the 18 million on slide 1, the 4.4 million on slide 2, and that's where you get the total expenditures that we anticipate to date that are directly related to COVID, 22.4 million. On slide 3, we start to talk about reimbursement. Slide 3, Tiffany tells me, we've actually received these funds. So this is a local match reimbursement. So the city and the county gave us a small amount of some of their COVID dollars. That was then reimbursed at the state level. to the tune of $720,000.
That's great.
And then, on our final slide, these are pending reimbursements, CARES Act reimbursements through the middle of this month. So you see a couple of different programs. One is run through the Department of Emergency Management. The other is a prior purchase program that reimburses us for technology that was purchased from May through December of 2020. And you can see the amount over on the right that we have requested to be reimbursed. These dollars are not yet received. So if you take the 22.4 million from slide 2 and you subtract the potential total reimbursement to date of 7.8 million, then that leaves you with the 13.9 that as of now is not reimbursed, nor is there anything approved to reimburse it. That does bring me back, though, to the comment I made about federal funds. If the ESSER money that you've heard about so many times were to flow to the district, one of the allowable expenses is prior purchases. So if that were to happen, we would change our tune on this, but this is where we are to date.
Okay.
Happy to answer questions.
I think we're good.
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 Moving on. Dr. Harrell, next one's
Yes.
yours.
So, as you know, we are required to continue education, getting credit as board members. And again, I'm proud to say, as board president, it's my duty to announce that all of the Northside trustees have not just exceeded, but super exceeded, if I can say that, the required hours of continuing education. Completing the annual required continuing education is a basic obligation and expectation of any sitting board member under State Board of Education rule. An amendment to the SBOE's rule on continuing education for the school board members also requires that the board president annually distributes the framework for school board development to all current members of the board and the superintendent. This has been done by attaching the framework to tonight's agenda item. The minutes will reflect this information as well. Trustees have through April 30th, 2021 to garner additional training for the 2020-2021 assessment year if desired. Any questions on that, other than complimenting yourselves for going above and beyond? Thank you very, very much. All right, Dr. Woods, future agenda items.
All right, Dr. Harrell, you actually have a blue folder at your place, and in that folder you have invitations to some events upcoming. The Elementary and Secondary Educators of the Year, early in May. Those are live stream events. And then the FFA Awards Ceremony, which is an in-person event, the second week in May. You've also got a copy of future agenda items. We do have 2 meetings in the coming month in May, one on the 11th and then the regular meeting on the 25th. As of now, we're also scheduled for 2 meetings in June. We'll see whether or not that's necessary, probably pending the end of the legislative session. And then lastly, Ms. McGee's got an RSVP form needed for 3 events that are upcoming, one of which you already heard about from Mrs. Freeman, that's TASB SLI. So if you'll just do your check boxes on those 3 events and get that to Ms. McGee, we would appreciate it.
Hey, Brian, on the Teacher of the Year Awards, that's only live? We can't go there?
No, we're not actually hosting an in-person event at all. So it's not that you're not invited, it's simply a completely virtual event. We made the call a while back because of the need to do all the technology it takes to put it together. And it's one of the ones we kind of wish now we had done hybrid of some kind, but that wasn't the call we made, so it's a completely virtual event.
Are we looking to try to move to some more in person, Brian?
Yeah, I
For other
think-
things and then like graduations at one point when we get to graduations?
Yeah, graduations are in person. That decision's already been made.
Right.
They'll be a lot more spread out than normal, but graduations are definitely in person. And really, most of our events anymore are at least partially in person. where we can accommodate space.
Right, but proms ended up not being able to, but I have seen that some of the schools are trying to figure out some kind of an event or hybrid or even, just a safe social event.
All the high schools have been asked to host an event like that on campus.
Okay.
Correct.
Dr. Woods?
Ma'am.
Also, on future agenda items, I think I just put my folder in. TASB has a call for resolutions due June the 15th. Is that on the?
No, I don't think it is. Oh, yeah, it's on the May regular meeting, Ms. Freeman.
Okay, I didn't know if it was there. Thank you.
Yep, it's on there.
Anything else before executive session? All right, the Board of Trustees on April 27th, 2021, beginning at 8:07 PM, will convene in closed session in accordance with Texas Government Code, Sections 551.071, 551.074. The list A through S items will be up for discussion, and we will go. Thank you. All right.
No, I've had too much sweets.
The Board of Trustees on April 27th, beginning at 10:16, will convene an open session. Let me put 10:16. Action will take place on the following items. And the items are listed A through T. We'll start with consideration and possible action concerning superintendent's recommendations regarding probationary professional educator contracts, one-year term professional educator contracts, retire, rehire, one-year term professional educator contracts, and two-year term professional educator contracts. Is there a motion for the board? Mr. Lopez?
I think I have item D. That, you're talking about item A?
We're talking about item A.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Okay, who has item A? Mr. Blunt? Mr.? Okay, so let's just, okay, then A and then B, deliberation and possible action regarding termination of probationary contract employees, and deliberation and possible action regarding proposal non-renewal of term contract employees. And then D2, right? Yeah. Okay. All right, so Mr. Lopez, any order?
So I move that I move that the board terminates the probationary contract for Forrest Gabbich in the best interest of the district, and that we authorize the superintendent to deliver the required statutory notice letter to Mr. Gabbich about this board action.
Is there a second? Second. Ms. Reed seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, the ayes have it.
I have one.
So that's been approved. All right, Mr. Medina?
I move that the board accepts the superintendent's recommendation that we propose a non-renewal for the term contracts for Gertrude Gonzalez and Jennifer McMasters, and that we authorize the superintendent to deliver the required statutory notice letter to these teachers about this board's action as discussed in closed meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
All right, Ms. Chumley has seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, the ayes have it. Is there a motion before the board for the appointments?
Move approval of the appointments as discussed in closed session?
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second, I'll do that.
All right, all,
Yeah, I'll get after it.
oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'll do it
Okay,
afterwards.
all right, I can't hear it, sorry. All right, all those in favor, going back to the original motion on the appointments, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. All right, the appointment's been approved. Mr. Blunt?
I move that the board conduct any non-renewal hearings during the current school year. I move to authorize the board president to select and make arrangements with an attorney to advise and assist the board in connection with any non-renewal hearings during the current school year. And I further move to authorize the board president, in consultation with the board's attorney, to impose procedural rules for any non-renewal hearing and to make scheduling decisions regarding same.
All right, Ms. Reed is seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, the ayes have it. It's been approved. Is there a motion before the board on the superintendent evaluation and contract?
Dr. Harrell. I move that we approve the superintendent's contract as discussed in executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Medina and Mr. Lopez tied. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. All right, the ayes have it. The evaluation contract been approved. The board ends its meeting at 10:21 on April 27, 2020. Tell me.